Right. So good afternoon. I'm here this afternoon with Detective Maurice Washington, who's a detective with the SPD Human Trafficking Unit. Detective Washington, can you please introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about how long you've been with SPD, what role you currently serve there.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Detective Maurice Washington. I'm with the Seattle Police Department's Human Trafficking Unit, and I'm also a task force member with the FBI's Child Exploitation Task Force. I've been in this current assignment for about 15 years, and our mission specifically is investigating sex trafficking related crimes that are occurring in Seattle and the greater Seattle area. And that's what we do every day, all day, specifically dealing with promoting a prostitution involving adults and focusing on those problems involving minors.
Thank you. And how many detectives are in your unit?
Currently we are super low on staffing. I think we are, kind of the same as the rest of the department. I mean, the department was cut in half, and so most of the detective units took a hit as well. So there are less than a handful of us that are in the unit now.
Mhm. Okay. And so where is your area of jurisdiction? Is it mostly Aurora? Is it other parts of the city?
We handle everything in Seattle. So anything that's sex trafficking related throughout the city of Seattle, we handle that. And again, with the task force, the greater Seattle area and beyond, we handle all those issues because this is an issue that is not just um, stationary. It's very transitory and it moves around. And so any of our victims that or persons in our area that are victimized and taken to other areas, we are fully going to investigate those things to make sure that we can bring justice and bring those folks home.
Mhm. So I'm just going to direct your attention to Aurora Avenue. Has Aurora Avenue been traditionally considered a known area of prostitution or?
Yeah, Seattle's Aurora Avenue North corridor from North 85th Street up to North 145th has been known as a very active prostitution area for several decades, and it is just like some of the open air drug markets you see in other parts of the city. It is pretty much an open air prostitution market that is there. It has changed dramatically over time. It is much more competition, much more persons that are out there on the track currently. So persons being victimized out there, and there's a lot more violence that is associated to it because of the popularity of the track. Now, while we most times like to say that people come to our area for tourism and those types of things, unfortunately for, excuse me, unfortunately for the Aurora Avenue corridor, we're the #2 most prolific trafficking track in the United States. And so that is not something that we want to be known for.
Number two in the entire country.
Yes.
And that's after, which is the first? Sorry, what is the number one?
Oh, that would be out of California.
Wow. Okay. So would you say is the composition of the sex trafficking and sex trade that you're seeing on Aurora? Is it mostly local? Is it out of state? Is it a combination?
It is a combination of local pimps and persons that they're prostituting and a large number of persons coming from out of state. The policies and things that have been in place in Seattle as far as not enforcing any type of prostitution enforcement has led to a presumption by most of the folks in the prostitution subculture to believe that prostitution, in fact, is legal in Seattle. So by that, they put out this message, they put out this word, not only locally, but around the country, to go to Seattle and you can make money, and there will be very little repercussions. There will be very little for you to worry about as far as contact from law enforcement.
So was that a result, or did that seem to coincide with the repeal of the loitering law, that people began to have that misunderstanding?
I think it was just an overall policy shift from no prostitution enforcement. And the loitering, it was just another one of the many tools that was removed along the way, when policy started to change towards persons basically saying that the persons out there are victims, which they are, and basically doing what they thought was best in the moment was to ensure that policy such as that wasn't in place to further harm persons that are victimized. So I believe there's been a lot of policy shift and law changes that has led to us being where we are. I would say as far back as 2012, there hasn't been any type of case in which someone was arrested for prostitution, or any type of enforcement on that side of things. Now, we do John Sting operations, but those are different.
So yeah, can you tell us a little bit about how a John Sting, like what are the resources that you need to do a John Sting?
Excuse me.
Sorry,
Can you still hear me?
yeah, what are
Can you
the
still hear me?
resources that you need to do a John Sting? Like
Yeah, so it's a heavily manpower intensive for us to be able to do those. We need arrest teams, we need undercover decoys that need to be present. We need surveillance teams to be out there to watch and make sure everybody's safe. Supervisors, we need a processing team to be able to process the persons once we've made contact with them. So yeah, it does take up some resources to be able to do that.
And then what about how do you operate in trying to go after people for promoting prostitution, for the exploitation?
So we don't have primarily the promoting part of it, because that is a very difficult position, because you need a victim to step forward on the promoting side of things. Those investigations, which we get plenty of, I was just telling you, I was screening one today, where the victims come forward themselves. A lot of times it's patrol call outs where some type of disturbance, some incident has happened. We get those calls that come in from the hospitals where these individuals are admitted, whether it be children and or adults, from schools, from CPS, who deals with many of the families, from families themselves who are looking for their children and or adult persons that are missing. And so primarily that's the way in which we do those. We are, again, an investigative unit looking to investigate the crime. So we're not a pro-act unit that goes out and does and kind of look for promoting aspects and those types of things. So we concentrate on investigating the cases that come to us. And that is usually the way in which we handle the promoting side of things. Again, very difficult because you have to have a victim step forward.
We have 3
Yeah.
minutes left, so maybe
Okay.
one more question.
Yeah. Gosh, one more question. Okay. So I guess what would you say are the greatest challenges that you're facing, and the sort of the tools that would be helpful to you in dealing with, trying to provide safety both to the victims, the sellers, but also being able to effectively pursue buyers and promoters?
Yeah, so I mean, the greatest challenges is that we have currently is that there is just a onslaught of trafficking related incidents that are going on, not only here locally, but around the country. It has become very popular and mainstream for this to happen throughout the country. And a lot of law and policy is replicated in many of the different areas that leads to some of these areas developing there. And once they develop, there's very, very plaguing and hard to deal with. And so what we have again is an explosion of the amount of persons that are being exploited sexually and put out in the tracks and online within our jurisdiction, within the city of Seattle. And we have the plaguing aspect of all of the different pimps and traffickers who are fighting over that territory, and which leads to the gun violence and the other associated violence that you have out on the track as far as robberies and rapes and those types of things. So all of this is fed through this same system. It's the same ecosystem that feeds crime. One feeds to all the other crimes that are going to be related and come around to that crime. And so, and then on top of that, you have many of these persons who are pimps and traffickers, and these individuals are, some of them are associated with gangs. And so then the gang issues start to come into play because now they're within that border jurisdiction from North 85th to 145th. And so any type of gang related issues that they bring with them are going to play out on the streets up there as well. And so all of those things feed together to a very adverse and challenging situation, very dangerous situation for our public, for our residents and citizens who live up there. And our challenge is, again, to continue to try and combat it as best we can with whatever tools and resources that we're given in order to fight this problem. And working together with our community and with all of our different partners.
In order to disrupt a prostitution business or trafficking organization, whether it's an individual or multiple people, you must attack and disrupt the customer behavior, i.e. the John, the product which being put out on the street, which is the sex worker or the prostituted person, and the pimp or trafficker. If you only attack one or maybe two of these prongs or pillars, then the business will survive and continue to thrive. So we have to attack all three and deal with all three. The only way around this is legislation on a state level that would make patronizing a prostitute a felony. And currently we have no such law or legislation here in Washington. So again, we have to attack the customer behavior, the product that the pimp or trafficker is putting out there, which is the sex worker or prostituted person, and the pimp or trafficker's behavior.